years ago that 2 Stanford professors and a group of recovering addicts could have something important to teach each other. And without her, this would not have happened. So in this talk, I'm going to share my experiences teaching moral and political philosophy to a group of women, most of whom have recently been released from prison, and all of whom are recovering addicts. These women live in a residential drug treatment facility in Redwood City called Hope House, and it's here that the subject of my talk, Riches for the Poor, takes place. Now, actually I'm not sophisticated enough with PowerPoint to do what I would have liked to do, but I'm hoping that by the end of this talk, you'll understand that although that's the title I gave to the talk, I could have given it a different title, namely the title, Riches from the Poor. That is, I'm going to try and show you the ways that privileged and disadvantaged alike are harmed by a society that isolates and sorts people at a very early age, and how we all can benefit from breaking down those divisions. And so there's something obvious perhaps, but easy to forget, which is that public service and education go in all directions. And so if I could, I would have a thing I pushed, and that would become Riches from the Poor. But I'm going to divide the talk into 3 parts. In the first part, I'm going to say something about the social background within which this project takes place. In the second part, I'll describe the project in some detail so Al can hear all the missing pieces. And finally, I'll try to draw out some lessons I take from the project for the public role of the university, and more ambitiously for our democracy. So first, the social background. As most of you know, there are significant inequalities in the lives of America's children, including inequalities in the education that these children receive. Jonathan Kozol captured our nation's K-12 educational disparities very aptly in his title of his book, Savage Inequalities. They include these inequalities in education, not only disparities in funding per pupil, but also class size, teacher qualification, resources such as books, labs, libraries, and computers, as well as the physical condition of the school and the safety of the students within it. Not all schools attended by poor children are bad schools, and not all schools attended by middle-class children or well-off children are good schools, but there's some clear patterns. To give one dated example, slightly dated, of the difference in school resources, and this comes from 1999, the wealthiest school districts in New York spent more than $25,000 a pupil, at the same time that the poorest district in Texas spent only $1,200 a pupil. And now, if I can do this, more recent data. This is from 2002, and it comes from a paper of Goodwin-Lewis looking at inequality in educational spending between states in the United States. And you can look at Wyoming. California doesn't look very good on its spending, and it looks at the 90th and the 10th percentiles. So you can see a lot, there's a lot of difference between the amount of money that we spend for children, and that amount of money tends to track family income. Poor children in high poverty schools are less likely to complete high school than middle-class children in better middle-class funded schools, less likely to attend a 4-year college, and very likely, if they do graduate, less likely to, if they graduate from high school, to attend a 4-year college, and very unlikely to attend a highly selective college like Stanford. At elite colleges like Stanford, those at the bottom 28% of the socioeconomic scale make up only 3% of the student population. That's on average of elite schools. And as you think about that statistic, you should also bear in mind that a black male resident of the state of California is more likely to go to a state prison than a state college. And for those black male residents of prisons, they're very likely to have less than 11 years of schooling. So we should reflect on those facts. They're disturbing. In fact, I think they're even appalling. And they raise the suspicion that our proclamation of America as a society of equal opportunity may be only empty rhetoric. Now I go to... Nope. Okay, there. Okay, so you probably all know this famous quote from Brown v. Board of Education, talking about the importance of education, in particular, the importance of education for citizenship, for meeting the basic responsibilities of citizenship. And I'm not going to read the whole quote, that's why I have it on a PowerPoint slide. But if you look at the very bottom, the court included such an opportunity, the opportunity for an education, where the state has undertaken to provide it is a right which must be made available to all on equal terms. But in 2009, facts about social origin, about family background, continue to influence children's educational attainment. Large numbers of children never have the chance to be educated on equal terms with their wealthier peers. And the education that poor children tend to receive differs from their wealthy peers not only in terms of distributional resources like books and computers, but also in terms of curricular content. High poverty schools are forced to focus on their students' ability to pass multiple choice tests. While some of the knowledge that these tests measure is clearly important, students' imaginative and critical abilities are typically left behind. Poor children attend schools with fewer courses in advanced literature and history. They have less access to classes in Shakespeare and to Catullus. America's poor children have little opportunity to reflect on who they are and what they care about, to find out how other people have lived and about what they might learn from that. Indeed, the sense of possibility and critical thinking that the study of literature, history, and philosophy involve continues to be unequally distributed post-high school. While courses in humanities subjects thrive in elite schools, even large state universities and community colleges can offer only limited numbers of such classes. And as a recent article in the New York Times noted, and this was just in the last couple of months, quote, as money tightens, the humanities may increasingly return to being what they were at the beginning of the last century, when only a minuscule portion of the population attended college, namely the province of the wealthy. Close quote. The prevalence of separate schools for rich and poor has many bad effects on the poor. It restricts their life prospects and it keeps them locked out of America's promised land. But I also want to stress today its effects on American society more generally. It impedes understanding across social groups. It hobbles the creation of a shared civic identity. It creates a narrow, multiply advantaged elite with limited information about other people in society, and it undermines loyalty among those who are left out. It distorts those at the top of the distribution as well as it distorts those at the bottom of the distribution. So that's the social background. Large inequalities in educational opportunities for rich and poor children, an increasing emphasis on multiple choice assessments of education for the poor, incarceration and not education as an outcome for too many of the minority poor, a relatively closed elite, and a retreat from the idea that the humanities have something to offer everyone. So that's the background. Now I'm going to talk about the project. So in 2001, Rob and I co-founded a program that brings Stanford courses in philosophy and the humanities to women living in a residential drug treatment facility in Redwood City called Hope House. We were concerned about the basic social background that I just described, and we were inspired by the work of Earl Shorross to bring Stanford's resources to address our concerns. Shorross, a well-known journalist, had started to write a book about why poor people have children who grow up poor. As part of his research,